This is Gemara and Eruvin Daf Lamed Beis. Of course, all the learning for Chodesh Elul is sponsored as a Chos for Shlema, Shoshana Teva Bas Esther, as well as Chosid Nishmasav as Rizal Basar Meir. Of course, all the Chelim B'Demir Ben Yikar Meni B'Vigel Chaim Merm Chanita Chaim Ben Sar Shamzim Meized Dasar Bas Mendeli Vasim Chaisara V'Schaim Zariasna Yisrael Ben Mendeli as a President Chevrolet Lovim Bas Naomi V'Shavigel V'Shirchani V'Odav Ben Yitriva Daniel Ben Chan Rezol V'Sar Shachali Yisrael. We pick it up on the bottom of Lamed Aleph Amid Beis. At the first wide line, we began this in yesterday's shiur. But let's begin over here as this is going to flow straight into Lamed Beis. The Gemara here says, the Mishnah taught us that you're not allowed to give an Eruv to a Chayr Sheit V'Katan. The Gemara already differentiated between Eruv Chatziros and Eruv Techumim. By Eruv Chatziros, when all the different properties, everyone's giving a little bit, so that they're all partnering together, that you're allowed to do with a Chayr Sheit V'Katan. By an Eruv Techumim, which is what we're discussing now, which is at the end of your 2,000 Amos, you have to put down your loaf of bread, your bottle of wine, etc., that we could not trust a Chayr Sheit V'Katan to do that. Says the Gemara, but if you told someone else to accept it from the Chayr Sheit V'Katan, the child, the deaf mute, the imbecile, then it is a good Eruv. Says the Gemara, why? Maybe it's never going to get to that person. That guy, that shliach, that adult, that healthy person is standing and watching him the whole time. Maybe he's not going to take it. How do you know he's going to do it? Very good. You told your friend, the adult, by the way, you're out there, watch my son, he's going to bring you the bottle of wine, take it from him. How do we know that he's actually going to take it and create the Eruv? Says the Gemara, a very important rule that we'll see many, many times. So it's a chazaka. Chazaka, of course, is very, very powerful. We know we kill based on chazaka. Chazaka is something that a shliach does a shlichos. If you create a shliach, you appoint a messenger, and you say, do something for me, we can assume he did it. Says Gemara, where did Rav Chisda say his din? That Rav Chisda said, that you're standing there and watching him. I'm sorry, Rav Chisda. Oh, it's Mardatani went to the Braista. Naslai lepil, vayelicha lekoif, nasnai lepil, vayelicha lekoif, vayelicha. You gave it to a monkey or an elephant. In ze Eruv. But if you told someone else to accept it from the monkey, to accept it from the elephant, hare ze Eruv, then it's a good Eruv. Again, you give your Eruv, you give your bottle of wine to your local monkey, tell the monkey to go run out to the Tchum, and then it's a good Eruv. How's that a good Eruv? Because you have someone else that's going to be there accepting it, a shliach for him. But maybe you won't get it. So Rav Chisda, this is where Rav Chisda said his din, that he's watching it and make sure it happens. But the same sequence of questions, maybe he's not going to accept it. And that is the original makar of this halacha, and that is we're applying it to us. The us, our case of a Chayr Sheit V'Katan. Rav Nachman says differently. Midaraisa. On a din daraisa, we do not say that a shliach does the shlichus. However, b'shal seifrim on a din darabanan, moving along to Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, chazaka shliach shlichusay. It's only on a din darabanan, not a din daraisa. That's Rav Nachman. We have to remember these names because, as general, as Gemaras always do, we're going to go back and forth trying to prove his opinion is correct. Rav Shishas Amar so a fundamental machlekes, Rav Nachman, Rav Shishas. When do we say that a shliach could be trusted? Rav Nachman says only on dini derabanan, not on din deraisa. Rav Shishas says no. Whether it's a deraisa, whether it's a derabanan, this rule, this chazaka, this din that the shliach is going to do with shlichos is a very powerful din. Rav Shishas comes in Rav Shishas and he says, "Mina min Allah." Where do I know this din? That we can see this din both by derabanan and deraisa. It's not in the Mishnah. Mishakara v'oimer. When the Oimer, the Karba was brought in Tezvav Nisan, Chadash, the new grain, becomes allowed miyad immediately. V'arachaykim, those who live far away from Yerushalayim, Mutarim b'chatzai sayayim, they're allowed to eat it from chatzai sayayim, from Mindei ve'elach. V'achadash, says the Gemara, says Rav Shishas, V'achadash da'araisa, Chadash is in da'araisa, I mean da'araisa, you're not allowed to use the new grain. This is one of the reasons, just parenthetically, why the whole discussion about eating chadash, eating yashan, is a large discussion as much as there are those who are mekel and chutz la'aretz. However, it's a din daraisa, it's not a pasha thing. Says the Gemara in our discussion, but chadash is a daraisa. Who? Vekatani. And yeah, we said, harachaykim mutar mechatzei sayayim. Those who live far away, they're mutter, they're allowed to eat the new grain from midin on veilach. La Misham, what's the reason? How do they know? Basically, we have a fundamental question. You don't live in Yerushalayim. How do you know they brought the carbon aimer? You're only allowed to eat the new grain when this carbon aimer was brought. You don't live in Yerushalayim. You're not a regel. You're far away. So how do you know they brought the carbon that you're going to go and eat the new grain? La Misham chazaka shliach shlichusai. You know what the reason is? Because of chazaka. He's a shliach. Bezdin, the kohanim are your shlichus. Says Rav Sheshes, we have a perfect makar that even on a din daraisa, chazaka shlichus shlichusai, and therefore you're allowed to eat the new grain. Rav Nachman argues, and he says that we only say this din by darabanan. How do we know that? Rav Nachman also over there we said the reason. Over there by the carbon aimer, that's not a regular shlichus. That's not a random Joe Shmo, a random messenger that you send someone like the case of the Eruv. There it's a whole bezdin. So there it's more than a chazaka. It's sheyoidim, you know, it's a higher power. Shein bezdin misatzal by the bezdin will never be lazy, and that's the reason why you're allowed to eat the new grain for b'chatzei sinan. Now, Vikad Amri, and the second lashon of the Gemara, as we've seen many times, whenever we have an Ikad Amri, it's a similar sequence of questions and answers, usually flipped around. Here in the Ikad Amri, it's Rav Nachman, not Rav Sheshes. Rav Nachman that holds it's only on Din Darabanan, using the exact same makar as Rav Sheshes, this exact same makar of carbon aimer, to prove his point that it's only on a Din Darabanan. How do I know? You know the reason is because the Brisa taught us that the reason you're allowed to eat the food after Chatzais is the Chadash, is because you know Bezdin is not lazy. That's a clear indication, says Rav Nachman. Bezdin udloim is datzlim boy. Ha shliach, what a random shliach is datzl boy. Says Rav Nachman, because it's a deraisa, you can't trust him. Rav Sheshes Amar Lecha, no. Bezdin apalga diyayma. Bezdin, what does it mean Bezdin is not lazy? They're even faster. They're very alacrious, I think is the word. Very zealous. They work very fast. And therefore, by Chatzais, you could assume they did it. Shliach, when he sent the Shliach to do it, Kula Yomi, you could assume he did it by the end of the day. Therefore, Rav Sheshes refutes the proof and says that we even have this din of Chazaka Shlichusai, even on a din deraisa. Rav Sheshes, and Rav Sheshes brings another ayah that even on a deraisa, Menamina Lod Tani on deraisa. Ha'isha, Sheish Aleha Leida Oiziva. A woman that gives birth, or a woman that is Tamei Tuma Ziva. The halacha is she has to bring a carbon, and then she becomes tahar. So what does she do? Maybe a ma'i, she comes to the Beis HaMikdash, and she brings money. Even a senes b'shayfer, she puts it in the shayfer. It wasn't like a shayfer that we're blowing shayfer and carbon out. Carbon in Chodesh Elul, it's a shayfer that was like a box, was like a tzedakah box, basically a collection box, and she would put the money there, and there was a special designated box. I think Rashi over here speaks out already. Rashi speaks out. Yes, looks like a Rashi for a moment about 8 lines into the narrow lines. Says Rashi, even I said it's b'shayfer shekatzvul of kinin. It says on the shayfer on this box kinin, which is the type of carbon she has to bring. Shesam naistim ma'is kinin chayva. That's where she put the money for the kinim, for the birds of a chayva of obligation, like we said in Shkolim, Mishnayis in Shkolim, you gimel shayfers. There were 13 shayfers, etc. So she would come back into the Gemara. She would come to the Beis HaMikdash. Mevia ma'is, and he said it's b'shayfer b'teveles. And then she'd be allowed to be taival, and she'd be allowed to eat kachim. La'ariv in the evening. My taima. What's the reason? Says the Gemara. Says of Sheshes, another wonderful raya. A woman comes to the Beis HaMikdash. She brings money, puts it into the box for the Kehanim to buy her a carbon. She goes home. That nighttime, she goes to the mikvah. That nighttime, actually. That night she goes to the mikvah and she's kachim right away. How could she kachim? How does she know that the Kehanim brought the carbon? Even on din deraisa, says Rav Sheshes. Rav Nachman, no raya. Also to Rav Shemaya. There's like Rav Shemaya, the Omer Rav Shemaya. Chazaka in bezin shakoyahanim. There's a chazaka, an additional chazaka. And again, anytime you have an additional chazaka, it's a stronger power than a regular shliach. Over here is that the bezdin of Kayanim don't leave until they finish all the money in the shayfer, all the money in the box, till they bring all the appropriate karbanos. And therefore, says Rav Nachman, there's no proof from there. Amar Rav Sheshes is the third attempt to bring a proof, whether we say this din of chazaka and a din daraisa. Again, let's just remind yourself where we're holding as we scroll to the top of the Amud. Rav Sheshes' first raya was from the carbon aimer, that we're allowed to eat the food even though you're not there, even on the din deraisa of chadash. The second proof is what we just said, that a woman who's tamei leider, tamei ziva, that she's allowed to eat the carbon, she's allowed to go home, go to the mikvah at nighttime, eat kachim, assuming the Kayana brought her carbon. On both of those, Rav Nachman's teretz was, no, there's something special about a bezdin. They're not misatzel, they're not lazy. There's something special about a bezdin of Kayhanim, that they work fast. They don't let the money stay overnight in the shofar, in the stock box. Amar Rav Sheisha is the tem number 3 min law. You tell your friend, go and pick some teinim, miteinasi from my figs, from my dates. The friend is allowed to eat them arai, temporary matter. And if he wants to have a same meal with them, he has to take a meiser. Again, halacha that we've seen, and we'll keep on seeing, hopefully as we see them, we'll finally get these sometimes difficult, complicated halachas of kachim. The halacha is when it comes to think of shumas and meisers, in the field, achila arai, temporary eating, is mutter without separating. You're sitting in the field, you're allowed to pop a grape, you're allowed to pop a fig, you're allowed to pop a date, and you don't have to take off chumas and meiser. Achila arai doesn't need to take off meiser. However, once you take the stuff and you sit down and you have a meal, then you have to take off meiser. Masrin vadai. So again, I tell my friend, go to my field, have some food, go eat some te'inim. And what does he do? Temporary, he's allowed to eat. When he comes to eat them vadai, then he has to take a meiser. Now, that's the first case. What about if I tell him, fill up a basket of te'inim? I don't tell him, go eat what you want. I tell him, take a basket full of te'inim, a basket full of figs. Zeh, te'inim miteinasi, from my fig garden. Again, a temporary is allowed to eat from them. And if he wants to eat a set meal, he doesn't have to be ma'asrin vadai. It has to be ma'asrin demai. Again, what's the difference? Ma'asrin vadai means we assume that no one took a meiser of these things. Again, it's my field. I told my friend, go eat over there. So he's going to eat. Then he now has to ask himself a question. 1 second. I'm eating produce. They're the owner, myself, take a meiser. So when my friend goes and eats there, he has to be worried. Of course not. How would he have taken a meiser? It's stuff still sitting on the tree. Stuff still sitting in the field. Of course he would take a meiser. So if he wants to eat temporary, he's not eat. If he wants to eat a set meal, vadai, then he has to think of the appropriate shumais and meisers. But now what if I tell him, take a certain quantity of figs. Take a basket full. Then, says the Gemara right now, the Tanakama, then ma'asrin demai. Now it's a suffix. Because maybe the Balabayis, myself, maybe I took off Meiser. And that's why I told him, take this quantity. And I took off Meiser, not from those groups, from the produce. We know that when it comes to Meiser, you're allowed to take off from one place to another place. So I took off from another place. And that's why I told him, I said, go take a basket full of fruit. Why? Because I already took off Meiser. So what does he have to do? Ma'asr and Demai. He has to assume them to be demai, to me a suffix, and it's a thing of meiser. Just to point out parenthetically, this halacha that we've spoken about many times, is din of demai, thing of meiser. So Rashi over here points out that how does this work? That when it comes to take off demai, what's this whole halacha? We've seen this many times. You buy fruits from an amaretz, you have to take off meiser. What does that mean? So Rashi here tells us that what it means is you're yafrish v'yoichal. You don't actually go and give it to the kohen or the levi. It's a suffix. So on this suffix, you have to go and separate it. You have to separate it. You have to take off the 10%. But you have to actually go give it to the kohen or levi. No, you have to fulfill the din daraisa by separating it. As you see here, right across in the Rashi, Rashi says, "El dema yafrish v'yoichal hu ba'atzmai." You're allowed to eat it. Ameiser shalevi v'shalani kishar lokech players me'am haaretz shemachzikim b'saving musarin af elu saving musarin v'teris demai aleim. So the halacha is yafrish v'yoichal. Again, many times you've seen this halacha that when you buy something to the suffix, what it means is that you just can't eat it straight. You have to do a mice, you have to do an act of separation. You have to take off 10%. That fulfills the potential biblical, the midaraisa din of separation. Once you take off that 10%, then you're allowed to eat it. You don't have to actually go and give it. Important rule that probably clarifies lots of things that we've said in the past. Says back into the Gemara. Those are the two cases. Again, one case, go take the fruit. The other case, take a basket. But what's the case? B'ama haaretz. That's if we're talking about Am haaretz. Avul b'chaver. If we're talking about a Talmid Chacham, oichal v'eino tzarich la'aser divrei Rebbe. Rebbe says, you're talking about a Talmid Chacham, then you're allowed to eat straight. Again, what's the case? We're talking about the Balabayis, the Pashtus is right now. The Balabayis, when I told you to go eat. So if I am Am haaretz, that was the case we just spoke about. And that's when you're allowed to eat temporary. If you want to eat vada, you have to take a meiser. If I told you to fill up a basket, then it's a suffix. But if I'm a chavir, if I'm a Talmid Chacham, then we assume, says Rebbe, we assume that the Baal Bayis took care of what he has to take care of, and you don't have to worry about that to eat straight. Rav Shimon Gamliel Loimer, no. But medvar mamurim ba'ama haaretz. Avol b'chaver, the exact opposite. Then in all cases you have to take a meiser. Why? Why don't we say that if I told you to take a basket full, then we could assume that I already separated on that basket full? Another rule that we've seen many times. The fee, she'ein, there's a din, whether it's a din deraisa, whether it's a din derabanan, is a machlekes rishayim. But there's a din that you're not supposed to separate shumais and meisers not from the produce itself. We know you have a basket of produce, you got to take off 10%. Am I allowed to have this basket of produce and from that basket take off 10% to pater up this basket? The halacha is yes, it works. It works. B'machshava, even though we thought, definitely works. Are you supposed to do that? It's something we've seen many times. No. Chaveirim Talmidei Chachamim do not separate from one area to another area, whether it's because it's a chashash that you might come to lose it, whether just because it's a gzeres hakasav, whatever the reason is, you're not supposed to do that. So says there should be Amliel. That Mishnah that taught us that when I tell you to take a full basketful, you're allowed to eat it without doing anything. That's only if I'm an Amaretz. Because then maybe we assume that maybe I went and separated from elsewhere. But if I'm a Talmid Chacham, says there should be Amliel, no way. You can't assume that he separated because Talmidei Chachamim do not do it. That is the machlekes Rabbi, Rav Shimon and Gamliel. Again, Amar Rabbi, Nirin Divari Midivrei Abba. I feel that I am more right than my father, Rav Shimon and Gamliel. Why? Mutav sheyakshu chaveirim litav shlomin amukov. Because Rabbi says, I rather suspect a Talmid Chacham transgresses whatever this halacha, this maila is, of separating shloim and amukov, v'lo yachilu amaretz tefillim, and not allow an amaretz to eat tevel. Because again, let's remember, let's say I'm not Talmid Chacham, and I told you go and eat. So said Rav Shimon Gamliel, no way, I'm never going to separate from something that's not right in front of me. Says Rabbi, 1 second. But if you don't go separate, that guy who's going to go and eat, he might get messed up. You're being over by making him do an aveira. So says Gemara, 1 second. Ad kan loy pligi el demar savar nechshadu umar savar loy nechshadu. So seemingly, what is the machlekes? Machlekes is whether the balabayis is suspected to potentially cause the other guy to eat something not kosher. Avol kulei alma. But everyone seemingly is in agreement, both Rabbi and Rav Shimon Gamliel. This is Rav Shesh's raya that on din daraisa we assume we have this chazaka. Comes like Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman says 1 second. Rav Nachman also Rav Chanina Chayza. Dam Rav Chanina Chayza. Chazaku al chaver sheinu moitzi davar sheinu mitukan dachas yadai. A different reason. We have a different chazaka over here. Is that the regular chazaka that a sheikh does in shlichus? Because that's what we thought. We thought that the chazaka was. Everyone agrees that in the event that I would take off, we could assume I would do it for you. And only there was just a machlekes whether I would do it, whether I would make you potentially stumble in eating something not kosher, which Gemara is about to talk about in a moment. Comes along Rav Nachman, he says, no, that's not proof. Because Chanina Chayza taught us there's another chazak in this case. In this case, there's a chazak al chaver that you don't let something inoi mitukan dachas yadai. You don't we have all over halacha. You don't keep stumbling. You don't keep something not good in your hands. You don't keep something that's potentially not kosher onto your hands. So that's the reason why the chaver wouldn't have this in his possession, and that is what at the framework of this machlekes says Rav Nachman. No proof on this case. Now the Gemara is going to go back to what we just said. If anyone was doing too much of the cheshbon of what we just said, they might have realized that there might be a little bit of an issue, which the Gemara is about to discuss. This whole halacha is only by an amaretz. Avol bechaver, but by Talmid Chacham, oichavin etzarich la'aser. Different Rabbi. That's what Rabbi said. Rabbi said that if it's a chaver, that if I, the Baal Bayis, am a Talmid Chacham, then you are allowed to go eat indiscriminately, because we assume that I took care of it for you. Says Gemara, 1 second. Hayam haaretz dika'amar le leman. Who am I talking to? We never spoke that out. Who are you? Who are you, the person going to eat? If we're saying that I'm talking about the haaretz, chavrei ma'asrin demai mitzayis. Are you going to listen? I'm sorry. Yeah. Chavrei dema'asrin demai mitzayis. What's it going to help? You're the Amaretz. Amaratim don't generally listen about take off trubas and mice. You're not going to listen. Ela Amaretz dik Amar lechaver. No, so must be that I'm the Amaretz and I'm telling it to the chaver. That is the Reisha. That I, the Amaretz, told you the Talmid Chacham the story. Ema Seifa, 1 second. Nir Divari. Now let's play it out. What happened? Rebbe said, I think I'm right with Divrei Abba. Why? It's better for the chaver to be suspected to take off not from the stuff in front of you. What's going on over there? It's not Amaretz, Because we just said that what's the case? The case is that the Amaretz is telling the Chaver. So you can't say that it's better for the Talmud Chacham to not let something under his hands. I'm not a Talmud Chacham, I'm an Amaretz. It doesn't work out over here. So says the Gemara, Amar Avina, the classic answer, Reisha B'Amar Shem L'Chaver, we never liked doing this in one price. But says Ravina, that's we have no choice. That's what we have to do. One is where the Amaretz said it to the Chaver, one is where the Chaver said it to the Amaretz. V'Chaver Acher Shamai, I said it to the Amaretz. So the problem is, are you going to listen? You're an Amaretz. A different Chaver heard what was going on over here. So now, Rabbi Savar Lamed Beis Lamed Beis, Oisei Chaver Oichel V'Nitzar Glaser. That other Chaver is allowed to eat V'Nitzar Glaser, the Vada Yisurei Meiser. Because the first guy, I'm the Talmud Chacham telling it to you, the Amaretz. So I'm the Talmud Chacham telling it to you, the Amaretz, and a different Talmud Chacham heard. So that other Talmud Chacham he's allowed to eat, because he can assume that I, the Baal Bayis, took off for him. No, he's not allowed to. Basically, it's very simple. All we just gained was we had a fundamental issue that if you're talking to an Amaretz, he's not going to listen to us. So what's this whole discussion? Answer the Gemara. There's a different chaver that heard the story that said you're allowed to go and eat. That other chaver is going to eat. That other Talmud Chacham, and therefore it's sort of like a case of a Talmud Chacham to a Talmud Chacham. And now we have this machlokes, Rebbe and Rav Shimon Gamliel, whether we say that the Talmud Chacham will take off something not from the stuff in front of him to save the other guy, or not. And on this, Rebbe said, for the potential that Amaretz will eat Tevel. What is the machlokes? Rebbe said, Isui Rabba. This is a very, very large machlekes. This probably should harken us all the way back to Daf Shabbos, Daf Beis, Daf Gimel over there. We spoke about over there. Can you take off the bread off the side of the wall of the oven, do a small isser to save your friend's bigger isser? You're doing it to Rabbanan, taking the bread off, saving your friend's din daraisa of cooking bread on Shabbos. Says over here, Rebbe holds it's better for Talmud Chacham to do a small aveira to save the Amar. It's a big aveira. He's going to eat something treif. Or Shimon Gamliel Savar, no. You rather let the Amaretz eat, do a big aveira of you, afilu isir kalila yavid, and Tabachacham won't even do an isir kalila, a small isir, and that is the fundamental machlekes Rebbe and Rav Shimon Gamliel. What is more important to Tabachacham? Is it more important to him to not do even the smallest of aveiras, or is it more important to him to save the other guy? Obviously, it's a very, very large machlekes, a very, very large discussion. Let's continue with the Mishnah. This Mishnah that we're about to continue is going to start a discussion that is going to run the entire tomorrow's daf and even a little bit into Shabbos' daf. So we're going to start it today. We're going to get the framework of it. We'll show a few nice pictures. And then tomorrow we're really going to get involved in the meat and potatoes. Says the Mishnah. And again, we're discussing this Erev Techumim. That what do you have to do Erev Techumim of 2,000 Amos? You put down your bottle of wine, you put down your loaf of bread, and thereby your kind of shvisa, you make that your dwelling place, then you're allowed to walk another 2,000 Amos from there. So, but the obvious point is that the food has to be in a place that you could eat it on Shabbos, because that's your shvisa. Again, this reminds you, this is back to the opinion of Beis Hillel, that you just need to have a theoretical being able to eat it, or a practical eating it, but not Beis Shammai, you have to make your whole house over there. But it says the Mishnah, you take your Erev and you put it in a tree, Lamala me'asar tfachim. If you put in the tree above 10 tfachim, any ruva Erev, it's no good. Lamata me'asar tfachim, you put it under 10 tfachim, a ruva Erev, it's a good Erev. Okay. You put it in a pit, even if it's deep on Shanamas, it's a good Erev. So number one, we'll show pictures of the Mishnah, then we'll go and start the Gemara. Over here you see in front of you, no, you don't see in front of you, in a moment you will, oh, there you go. Here you see in front of you a beautiful tree, absolutely stunning. And you see over here that above 10 Tfachim, you see the Erev Techumim, you see a bottle of wine sitting over here. So and that's, already it's starting to give you a lot of the details over here that the Gemara is going to discuss. But you see over here, that if you put above 10 tefachim, it's no good. Whereas you see over here in the next picture, I'm sorry, it's opening not normally. There you go, that's better. You see over here that if you put it under 10 tefachim, as it shows so beautifully that it's 8 tefachim, then it's going to be a good Erev. And the last part of the Mishnah was that you see when you put the Erev inside a bar, you put the Erev inside a pit, that even if it's amok harbe, even if it's very, very deep, you see how he suspended the Erev so beautifully in there, it's going to be a good Erev. So says the Gemara, let's go into the Gemara. Yosef, Rav Chia, Barava, Rav Asi, Varava, Bar Nosan, V'Yosef, Rav Nachman, Gabayu, V'Yasvi, V'Kamri. Hi, Ilan Dekoy Hecha. Where is this tree? You just taught us the din in the Mishnah above 10 Tvachim, no good. Under 10 Tvachim, yes, good. Where is the tree that you're talking about? And again, this will harken us back to the good old Gemara Shabbos days. Lots of Rishuyos over here. If you're going to tell me that the tree is in the Rishus Yachid, Mali Lamala, Mali Lamata. Who cares how tall the Eruv is? Who cares how tall the tree is? Rishus Yachid, Rishus Yachid goes all the way up forever. Fine. So must be the trees in Rishus Rabbin. The Miskavi and Lishvay Seicha. Where did you have intent to be Shavis? Meaning, where are you living where this Eruv is going to be? If you're going to tell me this that you yourself are going to live on top of that tree above 10 Tfachim, what's the problem? You climb on top of the tree, you're on top of 10 Tfachim, your Eruv's right next to you, everything sounds fine. What's the problem? Hello, what's the case? This guy is just the mata. You want to live, you want to make your place of dwelling underneath the tree, meaning at the bottom of the foot of the tree. And the Eruv is where? Above 10 Tfachim. Therefore, and therefore, you're going to have to go up on the tree. So, what's this above 10, under 10? Either way, you're going to have to go onto the tree to get the Eruv. And you can't go on a tree on Shabbos. We know, and it's their abundance to go on a tree on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, La'olam, and again, I'm sure people already are starting to anticipate the Gemara's teretz, but let's just let the Gemara develop itself. So the Gemara again is bothered that if you want to dwell at the foot of the tree, and then why is it a good Eruv even if it's under 10 Tfachim, you have to get him into the tree, which you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, La'olam, the Kaiber Shizarabim. Really, you're not Shizarabim. And you want to create the place of dwelling by the foot of the tree. What's the problem? The problem is you're not allowed to go up in a tree on Shabbos. The opinion of Rabbi Damar, called Dover Shumi Shem Shvos, Loi Gazru Alav Ben Hashmashais. It's a Shvos. This is their abundant to go in the tree. And any Shvos we don't make the Gzera on Ben Hashmashais, and that's when you're kind of Shvisa, you create your ear during Ben Hashmashais. So theoretically, could you have gotten your ear Ben Hashmashais? Yes! Get up on the tree, be everything says they're abundant Ben Hashmashais. Therefore, it's a good Eruv. What a beautiful shot. You also said the same explanation. Is this the way you learned up the Gemara? Yes. It's Ranami, Amar Nachman, Amar Shmuel. What's the case? The trees in Rishus Rabim go by Yasar Bracha Dalid 10/4. But it's coming. This is the Mata for Rabbi and the opinion of Rabbi Damar Kodavar Shum Misham Shvos like Gazru Alav Ben Hashmashais. And that's going to be the case that if it's above 10, it's no good Eruv. If it's under 10, yes, good Eruv. I have to get up in the tree. Ben Hashmashais, you're allowed to be over Yisur D'Rabbanan. We're going to stop here because then this is going to flow all the way into the next Amud.